teach core courses. I see students.
We're going to go ahead and get started.
This quarter.
Oh, okay.
I didn't notice until I just stood up and saw on the slide here that there are some instructions for us. It says, please join a table with at least 2 people you do not know. So I will not be going back to the table where I was. Just warning everyone out there, I may come and join you. But thank you for that, and that may have something to do, that instruction may have something to do with the topic of today's discussion. I'm Michelle Burnham. I'm a professor in the English department here and also the director of the Center for the Arts and Humanities. Every year the center has a theme. Our theme for this year is solidarity, resistance, and imagination. And we host a cohort each year of both faculty and student fellows who are pursuing scholarly and creative projects that have to do with this theme. And this event today is the second of a 3-part faculty fellows series. So before you all leave today, I will make an announcement about the next and final event in the series, which is coming up at the beginning of May. But I'm going to simply introduce to all of you Professor Hsin-I Cheng, who is an associate professor in the communication department here at Santa Clara University, and who has been working this year on a project that today's panel will be telling us a little bit more about and following up on. So I'm going to leave it to Hsin-I to say something to the room about her project and how it led to this particular panel discussion. But I just want to welcome everybody to join me in thanking Hsin-I for putting this panel together, for moderating it today, and for welcoming her and the panelists whom she will introduce to us all shortly.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you all for coming. So, as Michelle mentioned, my name is Hsin-I Cheng. I'm from Communication Department at Santa Clara University. And this multi-year project could not have been happened without the several departments in at the Santa Clara University. So, Communication Department and also the Office of Dean's Office of Arts and Sciences. And this particular project for tonight, I have to really thank the Center for Arts and Humanities, Michelle and Amy and Britt for your support and help. So it is really an honor and pleasure to have been working with y'all. I'm also extremely fortunate to be able to work with this extremely dedicated and just fun panelists to work with since this past fall quarter. So Cheng and Jose Kabeer and Darrien, Mitri, and Sonia Gomez. And of course, our wonderful web designer, RJ, who really made our ideas into what we're going to see today. So our collective efforts really illustrates what's possible when a group of people across different racial identity lines to come and working together. So before I invite each panelist to talk a little bit about themselves and also what they have contributed to this project, just allow me to describe the development of this website, which is the Asian Black Alliance. So, I guess I could have shown you this. Well, and then that. But let's move to this. Like many of people, I was really overwhelmed by the murder of George Floyd that led to the third wave of Black Lives Matter movement, and also the much more pronounced anti-Asian hate after COVID-19. So at that time, I started a research project that to hopefully help me to better understand Black and Asian relations in the United States. So during that summer, I interviewed about 70 plus Black Americans and also Asian Americans to understand their experiences with each other. So I wanted to share some of the quotes with you here. I think we're probably okay now. So as you can see, there are a lot of painful experiences, and then from the process, what I learned is that Black Americans and Asian Americans have a very sort of segregated experiences growing up in the United States. They learn very little about each other. With lots of pain, at the same time, many participants express their desire to have more space to learn from each other, to interact with each other. So to speak with academic audience, I published a research article. At the same time, I also feel that it's important to engage more people to have a space to have this conversation, and that was sort of the imagining what could be possible to bring people together, and therefore the space Black and Asian and Black Alliance website was developed. And so this is a multilingual website where there are different languages that one can go and then learn about the material here. The content of the website was in. So I guess you're not seeing it. Here. Okay. Sorry about that. So it's a multilingual website, and the content of the website were inspired by participants when I interviewed them. And I just want to play a clip from to kind of learn about some people's experiences. Oh. Okay, my apologies. I'm not sure what the problem is with the. Again, I'm sorry that I'm not sure if I can play the clip for you now, but we're going to share the link with you, so hopefully you'll have time to check out this link and this video by yourself later. But okay. So, yeah. Oh, really? Okay. So that means I need to log into the computer here. Let me say, is this just for yeah, it's the same thing. Oh, yeah. If we have time, if we have time, maybe I'll show it to you later. But let's kind of go on to the next part. So. So what's in addition to this sort of a space where people could engage each other online, we also think that it's important to have conversations in physical space. So last Tuesday, the team visited Ames High School in Oakland, and we had high school students talk to each other and about Black and Asian solidarity. And then we also had them do some activities, one of which was to create Afro-Asian arts. And so these are just sort of the pictures that we had taken. And they create arts that are based on their home language to talk a little bit about what it means when these two cultures comes together. And so that is our experience there. And these are the comments that we learned from Ames students. So one of them say, even though you do not have much to work with, it is how you improvise with that said work. I learned to cooperate with my peers, learn words in different languages, and the history of Asian and Black relations. I learned that opinions on appropriation is subjective. I learned that a lot of appropriation tends to have harmful implications. I learned that language is a barrier for collaboration. The most meaningful part of the event was being able to hear the perspectives of my peers in regards to cultural appropriation versus appreciation. So what we learned is that there is a desire to really have more conversation and understanding of the relationship between Black and Asian Americans. And then we really invite y'all, if you have ideas to contribute to the lesson plan for our project, you can find the information here. We're going to share the information later as well. But before we do that, I'd like for our panelists to introduce themselves a little bit, and then also just to talk a little bit about their project.
Great.
Go ahead.
So we have 1 minute.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So hello everyone, I'm Sean Ye from Modern Languages and Literatures. I teach Mandarin Chinese across all levels here, and also some Hsin-I 3 classes in English. I teach Mandarin Chinese, but I'm from Taiwan. It's really nice to be part of the group, and I really learned a lot actually. I think I think it just had many positive impacts on my teaching as well. All right, so that's 1 minute, okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Kabeer. I teach in Ames in Oakland. I'm the college coordinator right now, so I hung up my teaching title, but I help students get to college, and I was really interested in this project for that reason, that it was combining Santa Clara University with the general public, so it was a good opportunity for me. I studied at Green Mountain College in Vermont, and I studied psychology with an emphasis on motivation, and one of my favorite topics is social learning theory. So I like to combine those ideas of Albert Bandura with what's going on here with the Asian and Black Alliance, and talk about basically the intersectionality between the two cultures. That's what my lesson was about. I see myself as a global citizen, and so I wanted to create a project that explores the differences in a way that we see commonality in them. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Darrien. I'm a student, I'm a sophomore here. Double majoring in communication because I really have a passion for that, and economics because, I don't know. I joined this project because Professor Cheng asked me to hop on board, and I was interested in this project because as a mixed person myself, I feel most at home when we're talking about mixed things. That's where I feel the most comfortable. And so that's what intrigued me to be here. My lesson plan is on Black and Asian relations through hip-hop music. And so I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, thank you all for coming.
Hi everyone, I'm Sonia Gomez. I am an assistant professor in the history department. I teach classes on 20th century US history related to gender, race, migration, and social movements. And a kind of particular subfield within my research and teaching is on what we call Afro-Asian histories. I've written about it in a historical context. So when I was invited to be part of this, I was very excited to kind of be part of a contemporary movement, if you will, as a historian, right? We don't really get these opportunities as much. My lesson plan is a little bit of a downer because it is obviously, it's history, but it's really about unpacking the anti-Black origins of the model minority myth. I think that's something that a lot of students think they know what the model minority myth, but they don't. And so it's not a fun history, but I think it's a very important history. I'll talk more about that lesson plan later.
Okay, and so you already know who I am, and my lesson was about Asian Americans' racial positionality in the United States, and I really focusing on the relational citizenship, meaning that citizenship is not owned within and by an individual, it's actually co-constructed between people in interaction. So I wanted to talk about how do we talk about Asian Americans' positionality racially in the US. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. All right. So since you kind of got to know us a little bit, I think we can move to the next part, which is we have some questions for the panel to kind of share our experiences with you throughout this process. So before we do that, we would like for you to think this question for a bit, and we're going to come back to this later. What does Black and Asian Alliance mean to you? And hold on your thoughts, keep that, we're going to come back to that later. So I'd like the panel to talk about, what made you want to be part of this project, and also the insights you have learned through this collaboration.
I can start. What made me want to join this project was I wanted to, shoulder people that came before me and be the Black voice in this Black-Asian Alliance conversation. And I have a unique position given my job is I work in a school of over 450 students that is literally 50% Asian American and 40% African American. So I was like, oh wow, this would be great because I see this play out every day, both the conflicts and the collaboration among the two groups. So I was really interested to offer my insight, offer the students and that experience to the panel, and Dr. Cheng for her research, and to just show, because a lot of, as you said, we talk about the history, but to show that in the future, and we've kind of progressed, and that there are positive aspects of the relationship, and I just really wanted to highlight those through my experience that I had and share with the group.
Right, so the reason why I joined the Black Asian Solidarity Project is that, of course, Dr. Chen just invited me. Well, that's pretty straightforward. To be honest, in the beginning, when Dr. Chen reached out to me and about this project, I was like, the imposter syndrome is looming over again. As a first-gen student or scholar, I had never thought about like teaching. Oh, I taught Chinese at different places, and I never thought about like teaching at Harvard. I was like, wow, how could it be possible for a first gen like me to teach at Harvard? And also went to Stanford for my PhD studies. And then, but I just overcame with it, and I was like, okay. I took a look at the website, and then there's lots of sections on like the misconceptions, right? And I was like, wow, this is actually what I'm doing for my advanced Chinese classes. And I was like, okay, good. I'm going to give it a try. So I think that's why I just I was very inspired by the project, and then just to see what kinds of contributions I can make to this project, and it turned out to be good.
Sorry, just to interject. That's what Sean is talking about. This is the Chinese,
Yes.
one of the Chinese
Yes.
version of harmful myths,
Right,
and that's what, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I am a professor here at Santa Clara. So one of the things, I mean, there's a variety of reasons why I joined the collaborative, but one of the things that I was really excited is to actually get to go to Ames, to get out of Santa Clara, right? And I mean, I am a historian, I'm not a public historian, but perhaps, that's an aspiration for later. But just being able to share my research, like outside the confines of, Santa Clara and higher ed, and take the research that I've done and the writing that I've done and kind of apply it to a more quote unquote real world settings. And to visit a high school that was a kind of contemporary setting for some of the issues that I studied from a historical lens. And it was, well, I guess we're going to talk about that later, but it was a real joy to interact with the students at Ames. And so that was a big motivation for me, in addition to the other things that have been said.
Yeah, I guess I already mentioned how I ended up here, but what I took from this, or what I gained from this, was I learned a lot. Whether it was from making the lesson plan and learning about like DJ Kool Herc and the Wu-Tang Clan, or whether it was going to Oakland and talking to a group of kids who are a lot smarter than myself on cultural appropriation and appreciation. I just feel like I got to learn a lot more about the world around me, and that's the mindset that brought me to college in the first place. So I feel like I got to delve deeper into that, and I'm really happy that I'm here.
I want to share a little bit about the insight I've gained from these collaborations, because we really didn't know each other much, and then I felt like it's just such a humbling and exhilarating process and experience to have, because there were times when we were talking about what we want to do, and then I thought, somebody mentions, an idea, and I was like thinking to the back of my head, thinking, really? And wasn't so sure, and then I thought about it more, and I realized that's a really good idea, and I just realized the possibility when a group of people come together working toward a goal, not about claiming credits or anything, is to make it better. And I am just, smiling when I'm sleeping. So now I do, I dream of y'all. You didn't know that, huh? And I want us to then move into the conversation about, specifically about your thoughts toward Black and Asian relations while designing the lesson plan, and after designing the lesson plan, and also what impacts do we want it to have, from having these lesson plans.
So some of the insights I gained were very similar. And what's the third question? What are your thoughts towards Asia? Okay, so when I was designing my my lesson, again, my focus was on intersectionality and bringing the cultures together. And I'm an avid hiker, and I love to go out in the forest. And I always bring my field guide with me, right? Because when you have a field guide, you don't know the names of the trees, right? So you feel like you're a stranger in the forest. But with the field guide, you can identify the trees, and you can know the names of the trees. And then you suddenly feel like you have friends and you're connected with the forest. So I wanted to do that with my lesson plan. I wanted to have students, and you guys will have the chance too, is to identify yourself, identify what makes you you, and bring that to a discussion where other people can notice you and understand you and then get to know you. And so that you're not afraid. I feel like a lot of conflict comes when we're scared. So my lesson plan was to unite these groups through this conversation. And so at the school, it was great. These students see each other every day and still didn't have the kind of interaction we had when we did our projects. Asian-Black relations in America is, it's because of the history and context, it has strong points and it has weak points, but it's getting better through social media and media in general. One of my biggest concerns is, how do we see each other? Like, how are the groups perceived? And if you look at the media, especially when it comes to African Americans, Asians and other groups outside of any group, we learn more from TV and media than we do through interactions with people. So I love this space because we get to have these actual, real human experiences instead of learning from each other by what Hollywood teaches us about each other, right? So those are my thoughts, and I always think one of the most widely seen movies that depicts African Americans is actually Boys in the Hood worldwide. And if you've ever seen that movie, it depicts African Americans in one particular setting, in one social class, but that's the most widely perceived movie globally. So what I was thinking was like, wow, we need to have more experiences where we see the cultures in a different light. So I just hope my lesson plan can do that, make the biggest impact it can. And yeah, so that's where I was coming from when I was thinking about the lesson plan. And Black and Asian relationships really starting to unite by having these dialogues and conversations.
Right, so I got the inspirations or insights actually from my experiences. So actually I'm trying to address an issue that has been lingering in the advanced Chinese class. So well, I've been teaching Chinese in the US for like more than 15 years. And then one thing I noticed is that topics in the advanced Chinese textbooks are all about the social issues or like the challenges heavily in mainland China. And I was like, well, it's really good. It's really good to know the issues and also the social phenomena. But I just noticed that students don't know how to use the language to talk about their own culture. I know this sounds kind of weird, but I can share my story. So I went to Belgium for a exchange student program in my senior year. So that's back a long time ago, back in my college life. And my French used to be good, okay, and I'm kind of like proud of speaking French and also English there. But when I was in Belgium, I just noticed that people there are not very interested in my understanding of Belgian culture or like Francophone culture. They're actually more interested in my own culture. I'm from Taiwan, and when they ask me about Taiwan, actually, shame on me, I don't know anything about Taiwan because that's because of the maybe the education we received when we were young. Okay, I think Hsin-I may feel that, experience that. So I started to reflect upon these topics, the topics used in the advanced Chinese classes. I was like, well, of course, it's really important to know these issues, but sometimes when I ask students, well, students really want to share their opinions in their own culture as well. Because I think it's really important for them to prepare them to talk about the issues in their own culture. I mean, maybe American culture when they study abroad. Because people there may be interested in their life, right? So that's what I've been doing for my advanced Chinese classes. So I think that's that sounds pretty different. I mean, maybe my colleague will not agree, but this is something I started to experiment, and I think students actually it is pretty well received among the students because they know how to use the language to communicate their own issues. Yeah, and then we move on to talk about the same issues in different places.
Yeah, so I struggled a little bit to kind of figure out how can I teach, I was like, how can I create a kind of standalone lesson plan? It was actually kind of hard to kind of think about it. So I thought, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things I find in the classes that I teach, as I mentioned, I teach classes on race, gender, migration, and social movements. One of the things I find troubling is students having, as I mentioned, a hard time understanding the model minority myth and how it impacts different racial groups. And so I wanted to create a lesson plan around that so that I could also use it myself. One of the things I find difficult when I teach that, how many of you know what the model minority myth is? Okay. Oh, okay, so yeah. It's essentially the myth of like Asian American exceptionalism, right? And so lots of students leave my class after we've studied the model minority myth. They leave, and you ask them, what is the model minority myth and why is it harmful? And students still think that the myth is that Asian Americans are good at math or are excel in academics. And I've actually had students, not here at Santa Clara, but previously, say that it's actually a good thing. This is verbatim. It's positive racism. And I was like, I think that's an oxymoron. And so I think it's been internalized by a lot of like younger Asian American students, that it's this myth that that we are particularly good at certain things, and that's why it's harmful. And that's just like the tiniest little nugget of it, right? It's part of this myth of Asian American exceptionalism is part of this like longer, broader history that dates back to the post-World War II period, when American politicians and journalists are really kind of racializing Asian Americans, assigning racial meaning to Asian Americans in relation to, more specifically in opposition to, Black Americans. So it's harmful to Asian Americans, but it's harmful to Black Americans, and it's harmful for, to greater American society, and any, I would argue, non-white people in the U.S. So that's the lesson I want students to take away. So because I'm a historian, the lesson plan that I created has a primary source analysis. It is it's an article in the New York Times. I think it's like 1966. That it's called American Success, Japanese Style. And the journalist starts off by saying, why are the Japanese Americans so successful, even though they were just incarcerated? They're more successful than Black Americans. Like, it's literally so blatant that it's just like, seeing it, you're just like, okay. And it's like, this is 1966. This is literally months after the Watts riots, what we call the Watts Rebellion. So this is during a kind of tumultuous time in the U.S. in which Black Americans are saying, yes, we had a civil rights movement, but that didn't translate into material change for a lot of us, right? And are advocating for an expansion of their rights. And so at this point, you start to see this like model minority pop up in magazines, the New York Times, but also within like political speeches and whatnot. And so that is ultimately the harm that it's done, and we're still living like with that legacy because it's been internalized and then misconstrued, and then we still see it popping up. So that was the motivation for my lesson plan, because I wanted to kind of go back and kind of get at some of the tensions between the ways in which Asian Americans and Black Americans are racialized in relation to one another.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot less to say, but before making this and while making my lesson plan, my thoughts on Black and Asian relations were whatever the stereotype is, so stereotypically not great. And then I also had my own personal thoughts based on personal experiences. And I've been lucky enough where my firsthand experiences between races, from what I've physically seen in person, have actually been pretty good. I've been lucky. But then after finishing my lesson plan, I guess on a much more macro scale, I realized that this cultural exchange between Black and Asian cultures is constantly happening, and it's something that we're constantly consuming. And I wasn't aware of that until I finished my lesson plan. And so I guess my hope for that lesson plan to have on Black and Asian relations is just for people to be more aware of the exchange that's happening. And then also, and I guess this is the goal for just education as a whole, but to help people move forward as more empathetic individuals. Because I think that, I don't know, that makes like just being outside and enjoying the world more exciting when you realize all these things that are happening. So that's my hope.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about as you can see why I'm so excited that I have met this group of people. So for me, my thoughts while during designing and after designing my lesson is about how do I translate academic language to a language that's more accessible. I'm still struggling with it. If you look at my lesson plan, I apologize in advance, but that's the struggle I'm still having. A lot of technical terms, and I think that that's important if we want to engage the conversation, invite more people to the conversation. To me, personal goal for myself is to how do I have language that can be more accessible. And the hopes I have for the lesson plan is to really have the conversation about race relations beyond Black versus white or Asian versus white. I like to have a conversation, within historically marginalized racial groups in the United States. And also to create language. My lesson plan is really closely related to Sonia's about Asian Americans as model minority myth. And I think that it's important to critique and deconstruct that concept, but I also want to offer a different language to describe the Asian American experiences. And I want, so that I introduce a concept that I developed called injured privilege, and really talking about Asian Americans' racial positionality as both, injured and perhaps privileged because of, the structural, setup that we as Asian Americans do benefit from. So then let's kind of quickly go and talk about the last one, so then we can do activity and engage the audience here. So if we can talk about what do you believe education plays in fostering solidarity between Black and Asian relations? What do y'all think?
For me, the role education plays in fostering solidarity between Black and Asian communities is the more you know, the better you can do. But it's just, for me, it's just really fighting against that the education that the TV gives us, right? That Hollywood is produced, right? What Netflix tells us. So I think that education is very powerful. Like how you see the other people in your world plays a big role in how you interact with them and how you value them. And so the education impact that I had from this lesson when we were at Ames is that people got a chance to value each other. One of my biggest thing is on just language in general. So I think having a common language to talk about these issues definitely brings people together. And I think that, fighting back against the Hollywood and the media-produced images of each other and how we should interact is very important.
And I think in terms of the second language acquisition, or the second Chinese as a second language pedagogy, I think it's I always think my lesson plan is kind of like outlier, but but I think it's as I mentioned earlier, it's very experimental. But I think while I was doing this kind of pushing students to use a target language to talk about their local cultures, they think actually they are relearning some things that appear very similar to them, but actually it's different. It's different from what I thought. And for the advanced language classes, students are struggling with two things. First, they have to deal with the background knowledge, and second is how to use a target language to do that. So I somehow just separate these two things apart, ask them to deal into these issues in their own language, in their first language or home language, and then try to approach issues by using the new words. So, well, it's a very complicated thing, but I think it's just my attempts to do this project.
Yeah, I think, I mean, what's already been said, like education, you know, can help dispel like racist stereotypes, right? I find in my classes, students will like be surprised at like learning about kind of instances of like interracial solidarity in the past. Like, you know, people kind of live within their, like, they think, you know, I try to push students to have kind of a long view of the world, right? A historical view. So I think kind of knowing these instances in the past can be really inspirational, but also knowing how interracial, particularly Afro-Asian, Black Asian solidarity has been, some of the challenges that it's faced in the past. I think my hope is in some ways that we can learn from that, right? Draw some lessons and hopefully give, you know, students, people who are learning this history, a kind of long view of this relationship or of this alliance and solidarity, that it's not just within this like specific, you know, context of our contemporary world, but there's a much longer history. And, you know, hopefully that helps to kind of foster a more expansive, kind of radical imagination, kind of looking towards the future.
Yeah, obviously education is really loaded because there's so many things you can be educated on. But I think what education does is it helps you realize what it means to be human, and like every sense of that word, human. And so when we educate people on Black and Asian relations, we're educating them on why everyone's human. And once you can see why everyone's human, you can see eye to eye, and then that's how you move forward as a better society. So that's the role I think education plays.
Yeah, and speaking of sort of like recognizing us as human, all my participants, Black and Asian participants interviews mentioned that they didn't learn about their histories growing up. So Asian Americans talked about they didn't learn about their history in school, so that they know very little about it. Black Americans says that they learned about their histories from home, it's oral histories from home, otherwise they don't get it at all. So, so as we can see, the way to stop solidarity building is to keep hiding those histories. And then I think education, whether it's at school or formal education or education at home, would be probably a place to start. So I'm going to then thank you all for your sharing. Let's do some activities. Darrien, you want to come up here and then get us, have some interactions going on. I know, let me kind of, yeah, no. Okay, let's see, which one is yours? This one, right?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. All right, so my activity involves like verbal response, so I'm sorry in advance. But as I said earlier, my lesson plan is about hip hop, and so I start by like explaining how hip hop came to be with this guy named DJ Kool Herc, and he's this Jamaican-born immigrant in the Bronx, and he's like throwing a party, and so he's mixing music from African and Latino cultures so that only the fun parts play on repeat. And then this theme of mixing, it translates into hip hop that we know today, where Black and Asian cultures are exchanging so that we can make more music, people are being inspired. But with that exchange of cultures comes talks of appropriation and appreciation, because exchanges can be good, but they can also be bad. And so at the last part of my lesson plan, I define appropriation and appreciation, or I take definitions of appropriation and appreciation. And long story short, if you're looking at it with a thumbs, appropriation, thumbs down, appreciation, thumbs up. Appreciation is appreciating those other cultures. Appropriation is taking something that isn't yours and almost making a mockery of it. And so this activity, which we did with these high schoolers, is we showed different examples of things in hip hop or just in life that could be seen as appropriation and appreciation, and then we asked for their thoughts on it. And so that's what I'm going to ask for you guys today. You can start with just showing your thumbs, and then I hope to generate some responses from you guys. So the first example, not a super complicated one, but DJ Kool Herc, this is one of the men who started hip-hop, and he started hip-hop by mixing songs from Black and Latino cultures. So would you guys say that that's appreciating different cultures, or would you say that that's appropriating different cultures? You can show it with your thumbs. Would anyone like to elaborate? Any thoughts? Quiet room. Mr. Kabeer, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
I think it's appreciation because it's taken the best of both cultures, it's taken the music of it, and it's putting it together to make something else. So I think that's an appreciation when you take two things and you combine them to make something even better. So I think it's an appreciation.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Is he the fellow that was playing the music out of his apartment?
Yes.
That's the one?
That's the man.
Okay, because he had all these hundreds of people
Yeah.
down there. They were dancing to him after school.
Mhm.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, that's the guy. 1973, so 51 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts that they'd like to share? Anyone disagree? Does anyone think it's appropriation? All right, we'll keep it going. This next one is linked, so you might have to help me get to that. Do you guys know who Cardi B is? Rapper, very famous figure in today's world. She was doing a magazine cover shoot, and for the cover of a magazine, she posed as a Hindu goddess. Obviously, Hinduism, Indian culture, thumbs. Do we think this is appropriation or appreciation? A lot more thumbs down for this one. I see a full table full of students. Would anyone like to elaborate on your thoughts on that?
Sure. So I think it's creation because I'm not aware whether she has anything to do music. So,
She's not a Hindu.
so I think that she's using it for her as marketing, which is kind of making not fun of it, but not showing the good side of it.
Yeah. Does anyone think it's appreciation? No. I don't think she thought it was appreciation either. She actually apologized for it after that because she received so much backlash. Thank you. I'm sorry. All right. This next one's a little more broad, but rapping in Korean pop music, for those who don't know, rapping stands for rhythm and poetry. I hope you guys all know what rap music is. And rap, it developed when hip-hop was developing in the Bronx by primarily black people. So do you guys think when Koreans take it and they add it in their own music, would you say that that's appropriation or appreciation?
I like it.
You don't like it?
I do like
You
it.
do like it, okay. Would you like to explain?
You know something that you just said? What did you say rap was?
Rhythm and poetry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Rapping is what we used to do as kids, just talking.
Yeah.
Rhythm and poetry.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you.
The high schoolers, when we talked to them, they had mixed opinions on this one, which I thought was really interesting. I thought the consensus would be appreciation. But would anyone like to share their thoughts? We'll keep it moving. Okay.
We had a hand.
Oh, we had a hand.
I was just going to say, I think there's an interesting gendered element to it as well, because most of the really well-known rappers traditionally have been men, and you showed a female K-pop group. And I think that there are interesting things. I didn't like what Cardi B did either, but I have found the way she and other female rappers have pushed back against the misogyny that is too often involved in that art form, that it's not at all necessary for it to be beautiful, rap music. So when women reclaim it, that's also a powerful thing. So I think that if they're making more music with it, much like the original DJ, that's more appreciative. Not that they couldn't be taking tropes or particular words or terms that are inappropriate, but if they are just using the idea of rapping and putting it in K-pop, that would seem to me to be appreciative.
I agree. I find that they appreciate it. They're from another culture, another country, and they are introduced to all this stuff, a lot of it from the United States and other countries, and they want a way to express themselves, and why shouldn't they be able to without being told that they're appropriating something else from some people?
Yeah. Well said. Thank you. My communication professor, Professor Ellingson, and my grandmother. Thank you. We'll skip this next one because it's a video, but in this one, Katy Perry, very white woman, singing a song at an award show that has nothing to do with Asian culture, but she's dressed in this like traditional, like Japanese wear, almost stereotypical. So just know that, but I don't want to have to click on the link. For this next one, this is an Asian rapper. He goes by Rich Brian now, but his stage name that got him famous, I don't want to say that out loud, but clearly a play on words. Appropriation or appreciation. That's instant thumbs down. At the high school that we went to, this was a consensus appropriation, but would anyone like to share their thoughts? I don't have many thoughts on this one either. I think that's just a really dumb move. For this next one, we'll click on the link, please. NBA player Jeremy Lin, Asian man from Palo Alto, actually. I believe he's fully Chinese, and he started a little bit of a feud with a former NBA player when he showed up on the court with traditionally black hairstyle. Stephon Marbury said, "You can't be rocking that because you're an Asian man. This isn't your culture." So, what do you guys think? You can show with thumbs. A lot less emotion. Thumbs up. Would you like to elaborate?
There's just like a philosophy called memetics, like before memes became popular, and it's the smallest cultural unit. And I think that people make their stories, especially in the global world, we make our stories by like taking different parts of different cultures from around the world and adopting them to ourselves to make our own narrative. And so, I don't personally, I have dreadlocks, and I see that as, hey, if he's rocking dreadlocks and it's becoming more socially acceptable and it's part of his narrative, I think it's appreciation.
Yeah.
I remember following this really closely because Jeremy Lin is like the one Asian guy that's playing on a team that's almost entirely African American. And he said, well, I hang around with a lot of African Americans and I really appreciate their culture and I want to sort of fit in. But I was kind of like, that's kind of weird. But then the other response he had was, and by the way, you all have like Chinese characters tattooed on your bodies too. And maybe this is a way we all appreciate each other. And so the way he sort of interpreted it changed my mind. My original reaction was like, that's really cultural appropriation, like don't do that. But in the end, I was like, okay, I mean, if it's a cultural exchange in an environment like an NBA team where a lot of people of color are really like living together all the time, maybe I should believe him that he meant it as appreciation.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Can I say something? I just wanted to raise a point that one of the students at Ames made. The student was just a star student. We all were like, come to Santa Clara. But one of the points she made that I think that was an excellent point was that so I can't quite remember what her stance was, but the two things she brought up was that one, these hairstyles are in some spaces still punished, right? Like if you're in corporate America, right, and you're wearing dreads, like you might be called in to ask to like tidy it up and keep it clean. So that's something that didn't sit well with her. That Jeremy Lin wasn't like acknowledging that him wearing dreads on the basketball court, like not acknowledging that somebody else, like a black man who's working in corporate America for some like top law firm, might be punished or stereotyped or kind of deal with all these like negative ramifications for wearing the same exact hairstyle. And the other thing she mentioned was that historically dreads are used, not historically, but are used as a protective hairstyle, right? Similar to braids, right? So not necessarily like it's a style that emerged out of protection to protect the hair, right? And so it wasn't, I guess originally, historically, meant to be a actual style, but an actual way to like protect the hair from the elements and whatnot, and not having to like deal with it on a regular basis or a daily basis. So that was 2 points that she made up that are very distinct about, and Jose obviously knows more about this than I do. But that was 2 points that she made that made me like, I never quite thought about it like that.
Yeah, I saw a student raise their hand.
Oh yeah, but this is like a side note. and I don't know if it's surprising or not, because as an international student that comes from China, it's actually surprising to see like the aesthetic standard of common Chinese teenager. They're like obsessed with Black American culture, like that hairstyle, and also rapping. Like it's just like such a current trend that they appreciate. Yeah.
That's something I touch upon in the lesson plan. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I don't.
There it is.
Also, if we're running short on time, let me know. This is our last one. All right, so this is the last one. Using samples from one culture and another culture's song. So this Wu-Tang Clan, I know my dad's a big fan. Just kidding. But anyways, sorry. The Wu-Tang Clan, group of men from Staten Island. They make rap music. Heavily inspired by Asian culture, and this is one of their most famous albums, and it starts off with a soundbite from a kung fu movie. So would you guys say that using that for your own music, if you're not from that culture, is that appropriation or appreciation? See some thumbs up? All thumbs up? Iffy thumbs up? Would anyone like to elaborate?
This was literally some of my first interaction with Black-Asian relationship, because I grew up in New York, and I'm from upstate New York. I used to take the bus by myself all the way to the Bronx, to Chinatown, to get the video he's talking about was created by a Chinese movie producer, S.B. Shaw. It was from the 1920s and 1970s. And he actually was copying a lot of his stories from a Japanese producer who had created these narratives. And Wu-Tang, I was so impressed by how they took those videos and the lessons, and they were reteaching those same lessons that were being taught in Asian cultures to African Americans, right? And one of my favorite ones is the 5 Deadly Venoms, and you learn so many great lessons that I weren't being taught to me. And she had mentioned, just on a global thing, I was like, wow, they actually went to China, went to the Asian cultures, and immersed themselves in the Asian culture. So I don't think it's appropriation, because they really were a part of it and accepted by the culture. And yeah, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have had the kind of interaction I had with Asian American without their music. So I really appreciated it, and I think it was appreciation.
Anyone else?
Other side notes. I've noticed back in Chinese club, there's a clip and video about it. Because to be honest, the Chinese education in the English language is not that high. It's only 40-50% in big cities or whatnot. But they actually are able to using English as singing out loud in English with the lyrics that, of course, the hip hop music that's produced in English. So actually, they're trying hard to try and fit into this hip hop culture that they're obsessed with it.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share?
You know, one thing about it that I like, just that you brought up, and you mentioned, that they actually, prior to the music coming on, they actually paid a tribute.
Yeah.
That, to me, was an appreciation.
Yeah. I agree. So I guess in closing, this is a quote I found from a professor at the Berklee School of Music. He was talking about just music, but I think it applies to appropriation and appreciation as well. He says, if we need to define mixing with a single word, that would be balance. And I think that little activity was an example of that. It's not black and white. There's going to be disagreements. Sometimes things are okay to use, sometimes things aren't. But as long as we have these discussions and we talk about it, and we figure these things out together, I think that we can move on as a better society. So that's why I made this, and thank you guys for participating.
All right. Well, thank you, Darrien, and thank you all for participating. Oh, hold on, wrong slide. So I'm glad that Sonia mentioned the AM students, their thoughts. So I just want to share some of their reactions to the activities. gonna do a quick scavenger hunt. So please take out your phone or I guess phone or computer, and this QR code is going to bring you to the website.
All right, so please go to that website. Scan. Use your phone to scan. It's an amazing website. I learned a lot from it.
Okay, does everybody have it yet?
Okay, ready?
Wait a second. I think there's still,
Okay, yeah,
there's
take your
still
time.
using the QR
Yeah,
code. Does anybody need help getting it? Oh, nobody has it yet.
yeah. Okay.
Should we use this? We haven't been using
I
it.
think, yeah. Okay. I think I can just read all of you. Or, yeah. Oh, okay. So the first question. So it's about the dinner time, and I'm very hungry because I worked out for 3 hours already. So I'm just very curious about Afro-Asian fusion dishes. Would you mind recommending me 2 dishes, Afro-Asian fusion dishes, from the website?
So search the website, try
Yes,
to
the
find
website.
some Afro-Asian dishes.
Yes.
Raise your hand when you found them.
No pressure. We'll give you a name.
The high school
No
students
problem.
did this in like 10
okay.
seconds.
We got it. We got it.
Should I just say which ones?
Yeah.
Cameroon pepper fish stir fry, and then the country captain.
Yay! Woo! Thank you. All right. Thank
Can you guys write that down so I can order it, please?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
on the website.
But you gotta go to the website.
Yeah, the purpose of this activity is just to encourage to use the website.
Inter-age groups.
Yeah. All right. The second question. All right. So yeah. So if you want to plan a trip, which regional destination, let's say in a curiosity to learn, would you like to visit? Okay, so there is a session on the website called Curiosity to Learn. So if you want to plan a trip, where do you want to go?
This is fun. I'm gonna do this with the first
Me too.
Start when you quarter.
Yes.
Fine on this. Oh, there.
Yeah.
Or should we?
Should we?
No.
Okay.
That's not
Anyone?
art. That's not art. I don't even got it already.
Oh, wow.
Do we have
Anyone?
one already?
Oh, looks like she's got it.
Yeah, it's
Did
just
you?
smiling.
Yeah,
Smiling face.
There's a Angel Island Information Center.
Very close to.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Oh,
Annalena.
Sorry, are we still doing the dishes?
No.
Sorry, I was like in that.
that.
Oh, sorry.
What dish did you find?
Yeah.
Oh no, I got sucked into a rabbit hole because I was in New Orleans in December, and then I realized there was such a fascinating mix of black, an Asian history that often gets overlooked for New Orleans, and then how it mingles with black culture. So there's actually a noodle dish that is, and it's called yucca-mean. So it's slow-cooked beef and Creole spice broth served with noodles. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's lovely.
Sorry, I was
Wonderful.
New Orleans is an interesting place.
Yes, I love it.
Okay, so for the third scavenger hunt, find a historical example where Black and Asian Americans collaborated either in the U.S. or in Asia that you are intrigued by.
This one is a harder one.
So it's about history and collaboration. Oh, contact and collaboration. Hint, hint.
There's interactive timelines that have
Anybody?
Oh,
Elisha?
African American soldiers serving in the Philippines.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay.
Actually, that's a really cool experience.
Okay.
Whenever they talk about
All right. So now you got to. Oh, sorry.
you know they have to be.
Okay, so now we have some interactions going. Let's just go ahead and do more interactions. So earlier on, everybody was thinking about what does Black and Asian Alliance mean to you. So now I'd like for us to start to have conversation with your table mates. And so share what does Black and Asian Alliance mean to you. And then, given your identities and positionalities, offer 2 or 3 concrete actions that you could do to increase Asian and Black solidarity. And then please write them down on the poster boards that you have at the table. So we're gonna have maybe like 10 minutes or so on this. And please move about and then join people that you haven't met yet. We're doing relationship building. Come on.
Get another snack.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, but I'm not ready.
I'm Fred.
I'm Laura. Where is Tina?
What is it? Tina?
Srila. Srila.
Srila. Hey, Srila.
Oh, my support.
Please
Hey,
do.
Fred.
Fred, I'm Shirley.
Hey, Shirley.
Sweetheart. Sorry, I know how this Invisalign that makes me
Oh,
wanted
no,
to say it.
no.
I'm like,
So you get a list, but you did not want.
yeah, for a year.
Hi, I'm Laura.
Linda.
Third year English. Fred is Srila. And Shirley. Shirley, I think I have a very similar Bangalidi to you.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
You're the pink,
Just a
with the
little
pink-
larger.
Yes, mine's just a little bit bigger. Big fan of the Bagalini.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I've got a computer size bag, you like your bag size. Okay. Bags aside, we're supposed to be saying,
Number one,
what
share
does it mean to us? Okay.
And you two know each other?
Yes.
You're in 2 separate lines, other, like, separate.
It means my life.
Building and
Yeah.
So I think like creating spaces.
Because I was married to Asian.
Directly from
My kids are Asian, half Asian. Well, they're everything. I'm honest there. My sons are Asian, black, and white. And my grandchildren, Asian, black, and white, and Chinese. I should say Chinese. Yeah. So that's why it's kind of interesting to me. Like, looking, but also, I was raised in the military. So you know what that means? Always moving.
Always
adapting.
research project.
My wife, I mean, I look at, you know, I look at education, I look at, I went to school with everybody. And everybody, you know, they were mixed, right? The Japanese, blacks, you know, yeah, I mean, it was like, it was natural. It was not unusual
I was born
for me. So,
accepted.
no, I was accepted. They were accepted. Yeah, I mean, we were all military brats. So what do? Those are your friends. Those are your friends, and you know their mother. And my uncle, my late uncle and his late wife, Japanese. She's Japanese and he's black. And they got married in World War II.
Wow.
And he stayed in Japan until they could get their card. Yeah, so, and they're married for, I think, 50 years. They died like a year or so apart. Yeah. So I've been really exposed. That's why it's so easy to live in California.
Would you mind creating some lesson plans for our website? That would be lovely,
Yeah.
right?
Seriously, there's some oral history about military brats. I'm a military. I was in Brooklyn. It's different. His kids get moved every couple years.
Yeah.
I also,
Yeah.
you move all over. That part of it.
Adaptation is very important.
Oh, very important.
Very much feels.
I'm in the like history of Band.
So you don't get the
Oh,
stereotype.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I think she was here, yeah.
Automatically.
Like, I understand.
And then
Oh,
because
did
you
you?
move so much.
Oh, yeah.
You're not
Yes.
embedded in one.
You look at it, oh, you must be this. You know, it's, but
IQs and I was
my
very
dad, my parents
Center
last time in
and every
Mandarin,
student,
Fort Ord.
every group.
Half the high, our high school
is
is all
represented
military.
as
Most
a
of the
line,
military
right?
students
So
who are
the
from
words
every
were
square
powerful,
in the world.
love,
So you like,
unity,
there's
right?
nothing
So,
unusual.
my suggestion for our board is to pick a word that kind
Yeah, it was a deep
But
exemplifies
the
what we
interviewees that I talk with, those who grew up on the military bases, they're the ones that talk about how they've got friends from all over places. They move so much, and then their experience is actually different compared to the other ones.
Yeah,
So I just want
it
to say,
very much is.
So
How do you usually deal
ideally,
with
we pick the word and we write it in a
I'm
different
sorry.
way.
usually like deal with
Our students, when we say black too,
The
it's
military
kind of
kids?
misleading because our students are mostly
You gotta go to the commissary, which is a grocery store,
have that.
the military. Everybody's there, everybody, also y'all live together. Y'all live together anyway, so, you know, it's no telling who's your neighbor is. Like,
But yeah,
interesting,
that's what
my,
mine is. Pick a word.
I just took one of my
or
friends,
everyone picks a
family
word,
friends to the
write it down
hospital yesterday. She is,
We don't really know exactly.
Danish.
There's
And her husband was black, and her daughters are black and Danish, right? So it was like, you know, she's like 82 years old now, something like that. It was like, but they were my parents' neighbors on Fort Ord. So those kids, the kids grew up with my little sister, you know, and they're like in their 50s. Yeah, but
It's like such a vulgar thing and bar.
I guess what the way it was is like, if you call somebody a name, you must be talking about your mom.
Especially
I mean, because everybody was
college acceptance.
I remember even I lived in North Carolina.
Stuff this year. You find out, like you said, like
The first time I saw an interracial couple, they were black and Japanese.
Yeah, Hmong, like
And it was like the first time I had seen an
success
Asian,
rate, lower,
you know, and it was like,
status then.
okay, what is this? And then, but they were like, they were
exactly, yeah.
serving with my father in the military.
So, yeah, that's just my.
And they're being our friends. So it was like everybody.
How would you
German,
see how
I mean,
people
everybody.
I've experienced it. Like my mom first ate her first onion here. Like a dish with onions.
Put you on the spotlight. No pressure.
I'm a career coach, so I'm used to putting people on the spot.
in the class right now.
I do that to my students.
Now you
We
know
share
what
the same pen.
I think for me, like, and it relates to the second question, it's about solidarity. Like, what does Black Nation Alliance mean to you? And this is where it gets complex, on the basis of being marginalized and experiencing the structural bias and discrimination. In similar ways, but then there's so many like complexities of that, like, you know, like obviously not all Asian people are the same in terms of different positions and privileges they occupy, right? For example, like I grew up in India, I came to the US for grad school, and you know, my family was like couldn't go well educated, so but like I came to the US with $2,000, you know, because I mean I had a citizenship for grad school. Even though my parents were like the translate to pay for college here. So like so there are like complexities of privilege that I live in. And then of course all my high school friends are now like investment bankers like in New York, and so there are privileges, but then there's elements of like being a learning spaces. So then I also have learned and to not assume that all Black experiences are the same,
most of the students
because
are
there are like privileges, not privileges, but differences of like, intergenerational wealth, for example. So yeah, so for me, it being a new solidarity, like based on some shared identity and oppression, but then I think, yeah, that's where, and like this work is useful, like it gets more complicated because it's also, like you can't pin it down always and say.
Here's the Mandarin.
That was a long answer.
I would not recommend that.
Oh, okay.
It's part Indian too.
Oh, really?
Global citizen.
I know.
In all levels.
I know, it's like.
So do we want to have like 2 or 3 concrete actions that we can do during this
Have more schools like games. That high school, that's really eye-opening experience to
How was everyone?
It sounds like it's a very unique high school because of the proportions of the Black and Asian population.
I coach up at Evergreen Valley College as well. And it's very, very diverse, but it's all heavy Asian population. Really heavy. And so, it's interesting watching them navigate the school, especially when we're there looking for jobs.
Yeah, as a teacher, because you like.
When they're looking for jobs.
Students are like, they're staring at you. You're like, how do I spell the jobs or something?
A job search or whatever. So,
STEM and math.
For the
Is it Darrien?
no, I work for the graduate school of business.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So you're
But I
trying
didn't, but I don't.
Yeah, we work with students.
I don't know if I mentioned, I'm not grading
Well, we
in
work on,
grammar or like spelling.
Resume development, interview skills, job search.
But it is a different, we're so used to like correcting us that we're like,
So,
always prepare.
I think more of just. I think that more and engage. I think engagement is the most important thing. I really do. And so that you can, that you can learn. Have an open mind.
The thing that struck me
Also, I think
about
it's important
what you were telling. No, we might experience.
Go to different places. I'm the one that talks. I got the travel, but I think it's
Have it in school all the time.
Get out of here.
Brought
Get
together
out of here.
classes and share this sort of safe space.
Really
Made a
experience
difference. So that seems like a concrete action. You chose the right.
I have terrible penmanship. Remember because.
Timing, all right.
I didn't know you have to use your fingers.
I know.
Wrists.
Does anybody have better handwriting? Mine is
Oh, you can even draw. No worries.
Stay in your lane, stay in your zone, sit at your table, sit with your crew. But nothing's going to change. How do you do that? How everybody operates.
I don't know, especially in high school and college years, like young people are very like cliquey. Already, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because I was thinking as an educator, it's just like because I like, for example, do talk about the modern minority myth in my classes.
I bring something from my country.
But yeah, like if somebody doesn't have that connection, like a community.
Eating is always kind of.
Yeah.
Right. And my idea coming up with that was
teach
rights.
a lot of classes like that.
Because
There
like rights
studies
almost in every part of the,
as well as
every
communication,
continent
and I
has
was
rights
thinking
dish.
about, because
Yeah,
I'm
it's one of
trying
those,
to usually center gender, sex, and sexuality, I do also talk about race and culture quite a bit, but I don't usually compare or facilitate a conversation about Black and Asian conversations. It's usually about gender in how Asian American women or queer people might experience something, or how Black black culture would intersect with a gender stereotype about childhood and all these other kind of things, but I don't then sort of completely well, wait a minute, what does that mean about gender music is between say black communities and Asian communities, and that's a real it's hard to focus on everything, but that sounds like an important piece that I'm not getting to.
You have these examples of the K-pop one. Yeah, no, I answer that because I didn't know enough about it. I didn't know enough about how they were using it or what they knew about what they were using.
But many of the participants talk about it being
the idea of
and
so they
Asian black and a woman.
yeah, so
yeah,
and like
as you mix it. That's where the problem is weird thing because Asian women being adoption and then and so we just go back after black like refuge talking about in the dating scene how it's harder to find mates that is quote unquote desirable. So there's definitely that perception there. And I think that could be a way to talk about.
And the best conversation we had about that was when an Asian American student was talking about hair. And a black woman immediately then said, "Oh, you want to hear about the history of hair?" And I just get out of the way and let them have the conversation. That was one of the times in which it went really well.
It's really interesting that you brought that up because, again, I think my mom's great grandmother is Indian, so they all have straight hair, and that's how I got straight hair, right? So, but there are issues. Those are big issues.
Oh yeah.
There are big issues in the black community. I think it's changing a lot because I see more, more proud. They call it the crown now.
Yeah.
But I see it changing. But I will be honest with you. I have family members that look like that.
And falls in love with a young black woman
With kinky hair.
in the movie, and it's just really good. Shows you.
We were ostracized because our hair,
Really
we
good.
were dark, but we had straight hair.
Yeah.
I gotta watch that.
Now, you don't win. So it's a part of it. The hair was a big deal.
Yeah, that's not a movie example. I feel like it is appropriation because there's a very particular history of black hair, right?
But you only took
to adopt that like out of context to say does seem like appropriation.
perhaps like in this event, as I was thinking about saying this Asian students talk about here, just to be brave enough to say, like to kind of ask a question or to express
how they feel.
Yeah.
They talked about very stereotypical haircuts from when they were grew up here in the Bay Area and sort of what the Asian girl haircut was supposed to look like and things that I just never, as somebody with white privilege, I never thought about that either. She said every kid in her, whatever, second grade class had, all the girls had exactly the same haircut. Like, all the Asian girls had exactly the same haircut. Blonde hair but with bangs. So they tied them all a certain way and your mom made sure right before picture day that they were exactly one way. And so, and dads went through getting a haircut when I grew up, but mostly with white people in northern New England. But I had not thought about that might be experienced as really not a positive thing about being a little girl, a little Asian girl. And then when the black girl said, "Oh my God," it was all like, "Did you have straight hair or did you have braided hair?" And then they really had a great conversation together, and I really appreciated that because that's much better than what I could have facilitated in that moment. I think that's one of the things after 23 years, I've gotten better at getting out of the way. If 2 or 3 students or a group of students are having a good conversation, don't worry about the lesson plan, let them have a conversation. Usually they want to ping pong off of me instead of each other, and so it's really good talking.
There's also some of the nasty stuff.
this is my hair.
Elaborate on.
Well, talk about hair is a very good. Discuss hair traditions or something like that. Because everybody has that. I grew up in the 80s when we used to try to tease our bangs way, I mean,
Yeah.
When I was in high school, that was the big thing.
Yes,
My
it was
hair
big
was
hair.
very like
Big hair.
hair was a
Big
big
hair was a big deal.
And if God forbid it rained, because it was that we had like half of a can of Aquanet hairspray. I don't know if you remember Aquanet, but wow, that was foul stuff. Like, really smelly, just the name.
I was gonna say, just hearing what is making me smell it.
Yes, it was terrible, but that's what we thought, you know, we were supposed to do. I look at movies now.
Oh yeah. You know, it's interesting. I think the young fellow was talking about your hair and professionalism and all that kind of stuff.
All right,
So
Pete, we
I
had
actually
such a
go
good
talk-
time. I lost track of time. I'm sorry.
I did a
But I
talk
hope you all had a
session.
good conversation. I really would like us to stand up a little bit and then kind of walk about to see each tables what kind of thoughts that people generated. Maybe we spend a minute just kind of walk about, and then if you don't mind, kind of stretch up a little bit.
There's a really cool guy down at LMU who was